If you told me that I was going to be watching this drama a second time when I told myself that I was not going to be doing this, I would probably think that you were a psychopath. I have really been dreading, watching this again because with this BL, it's not really that. Yeah, so this is my second time watching this film. The film is called Antique. It runs for maybe around almost 2 hours, a little bit less than that. Very long, in my opinion. Did have no reason being this fucking long, but that's neither here nor there. My main issue with this is Jin-hyuk. I just find him to be just insufferable. Literally the first introduction we get to see of the origin of how and why Jin-hyuk is the way he is actually in a flashback where Sunwoo basically confesses his feelings to Jin-hyuk, and basically Jin-hyuk just becomes an asshole to him. Basically, this film is about it's a BL, but it's really not, in my opinion. It's about basically this bakery, I guess a bakery, in Korea that this guy named Jin-hyuk happens to own. I guess his family is rich or something, and he used the money from them to buy the building, I guess. Yeah, and he names the bakery Antique, and he's looking for employees, and lo and behold, the guy who he happened to be an asshole to in high school is now looking for a job as a bakery chef kind of person, dude thing. And this movie just really pisses me off because it's another one of those movies where the character who's out and proud to be gay or whatever is made out to be an idiot or oblivious to the fact that the other is being an asshole to them. For example, Jin-hyuk would literally just call him the F-slur just casually in conversation. That's weird. And Sunwoo would just be laughing and still flirting with him. I'm just this is not realistic to anyone at all. Anyway, then we have Sunwoo and Jin-hyuk, right? Then we have Gi-bum and Soo-young. Yeah, Soo-young. Gi-bum is this ex boxer champion. I believe he had to stop because of injury or something. Yeah, and he's also looking for work, and he gets hired to work at Antique. And Soo-young happens to be Jin-hyuk's bodyguard. Yeah. He was his caregiver. Jin-hyuk's caregiver when he was younger, I guess, and he calls him master, so I guess he sees him as a superior or something. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, the story really only picks up until two places actually. The first place is when we find out that Jin-hyuk kind of is traumatized. I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's funny, It's funny, but it's not funny. Where we find out that Jin-hyuk is traumatized, we're led to believe that there's a part of his childhood that he doesn't remember, I guess. And as his story unfolds more, we figure out why this is, because he's having nightmares and shit. And then the story starts unfolding more when this bakery chef, or whatever you want to call him, from France, Paris to be exact, I guess, comes back because he hears about how good Antique is and how good their baked goods are. and he comes to see that Sunwoo is there. And they're just like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in forever. Sunwoo and I don't remember the guy's name. He was like your typical European French guy, piercing blue eyes, blonde hair, you get it. We're told basically that they used to have like a little fling back in Paris, and yeah, I don't like this guy. So yeah, that's basically like the main meat, right? Until we figure out like what's really going on. One thing I will mention is that there was a point where Sunwoo told Jinhyuk that he doesn't want any females working at the bakery because he's scared of them. And I was like, he's scared of them because he's gay? That doesn't make any sense. But again, later on in the story, we figure out why this might have came to be, but it's still weird. So yeah, I'm gonna like skip a lot, actually. Yeah, so Jinhyuk, right? What's the deal with him? So when he was younger, he was actually kidnapped. Again, I'm laughing. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's funny, He gets kidnapped, okay? And I don't know if I should like tell you. I'm just gonna, because I want to get this review over with because I hate this movie so much. So basically he gets kidnapped, right? I just said that. This is my third time saying that. And his kidnapper, he was never caught. Like over all these years since he was, found, Jinhyuk had been paying attention to the news, and he was trying to see if he could get, information to try to find the kidnapper, right? Because as, he got older, more and more like children and kids and boys were getting kidnapped, right? And he wasn't sure if it was the same person or if it was a different guy or whatever. So what happened when he was younger, he got kidnapped, right? Again, that's my fourth time saying that. And this guy, this older man, brought him in, right? Took him and was like, giving him like cakes and stuff because that's what his own son liked. And I guess like his son passed somehow. I don't think they expressed or told us how his son had died. There was a point where after they found Jinhyuk, like when he was younger, they were like looking in his stomach to see like what was going on, and he had like a bunch of like cake, like a lot of like cake like in his stomach. And we find out that this, I believe she was Jinhyuk's aunt. She would bring cakes from the bakery to this older man. There was a point where she brought cakes home one time, and he was like talking to somebody else as she was talking to him. Because he seemed like he was talking to his son, but as I've just told you, his son had passed away. And she's like, oh, stop doing this. It's hurting me as well, because I think she said that she lost her son or something. And then she tried to take like the food away from him, and like he looked at her and like he pointed the knife towards her. And she was like, you know what? Leaves. So she went back to the bakery like a few days later or whatever, and was like, hey, can you like make sure to drop by cakes to the old man, right? And just let him, because he really loves your cakes, and I'm not going to be bringing him cakes anymore. And then Jinhyuk's like, oh, are you not gonna, be living with him anymore? And she's like, oh, I guess not. So yeah, that's where that kind of ends, right? And yeah, and then we start learning more about Sunwoo and the French guy, right? So the French guy gives Sunwoo a proposition right? And if you're wondering why I'm jumping all over the place, because that's literally how the movie is. This movie's terrible. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but this movie sucks. And this is where we start seeing that the French guy might be a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, you know? But before we get to that, Sun Woo basically tells him that he might actually be going back with this French guy to France to work at his bakery, pastry place, or whatever. And, you know, the boys are just like, oh, whatever. And Jin Hyuk, like, as soon as he hears about this, he immediately starts looking into, like, other, like, pastry chefs. And Gibum, the boxer guy, is like, why are you so quick to, like, get rid of, you know, Sun Woo when, and you're not even, like, trying to, like, get him to stay? He's like, he's the best pastry chef in Seoul right now. So why aren't you working hard to keep him here, you know? God, this movie makes me so mad. I really don't want to keep going on about this fucking movie. I really don't. Oh my god. Can I just get to, like, the part where everything gets explained? Okay, I'm just gonna skip everything. I'm sorry. I apologize. That's okay. Well, I will explain this. There's a part where the police actually start investigating the bakery because they're trying to figure out. There's a guy who keeps coming to the bakery, and they said that maybe, well, not that he keeps coming to the bakery, but they think that their suspect that they're looking for has been to the bakery at least once. That's all I'm going to say about that. I don't feel like going into that. So anyway, at Sun Woo's apartment, he's in there with the French guy, and he's like, oh, you know, are you really going to stay, or whatever the fuck he says. The French guy is like, is it because of this restaurant? Is it because of Jin Hyuk or whatever, right? And it cuts to Jin Hyuk and the boys basically finding out that he might actually, you know, be in trouble. And basically, the French man went berserk. He had thrown shit everywhere, and he was beating on Sun Woo, right? The French guy's like, oh, I can't believe you're, like, choosing this place over me or whatever. And my fucking god. And he's like, you know, I can't believe you're choosing this place over me or whatever. And he, like, grabs his hand and, like, he tried to, like, break his finger. And then that's when the boys bust into his apartment. They beat the French guy's ass. We get, like, some trauma dumping about Sun Woo, basically him saying that he had a crush on this guy and he caught his mom knocking boots with him. And he said that's when he started to, like, knocking boots with the guy, and that's when he started to, like, resent his mother. But then he said he's scandalous because he got it from his mother. Obviously, this leads to Sun Woo not going because that French man is a little crazy. But then the next scene, we see him at the airport with said French man that beat his ass and almost tried to break his hand. And they're kiffing in the fucking airport like everything is just all dandy. And the French guy is like, oh, it's never going to be possible for us to be together. And I'm like, you damn Skippy, get away from me. The fuck? What else is there? So skipping all the bullshit, right? There comes a point where there's this lady that walks into the bakery, right? And she's like, oh, you know, I'm here to, you know, pick up or whatever she says. And as she's, like, walking out, she, like, falls. Jae-hyun's like, oh, you know, I'll take you home. And, like, he starts taking her home. And she gets out the car. And as he's, like, watching her, you know, making sure she gets to her house safely, she gets there. Well, she's about to get towards her little gate door or whatever it is. And they hear a scream. And they both look at each other. Well, she turns to look at him. And she, like, starts running towards the door. And as she's about to close the door, Jin-hyuk is there. He pushes past her, goes in the house, runs up the stairs. There's, like, this part where there's, like, this shadowy thing that he's, like, fighting with. Well, it starts bringing back memories of when he was, like, kidnapped or whatever. And then, to make a long story short, he's like strangling, like, this kid, right? Not kid, like young man, whatever, young guy, I don't know what his age was, beat his ass, essentially. And that happens to be the recent, kidnapper. Not his kidnapper though, but a recent kidnapper, right? Yeah, so there's like this point where Sunwoo and Jinhyuk seem like they're a couple, but they're not. I don't understand. Anyway, so there's like this like older guy that comes and he's like, oh, can I get this? It's for my lady or whatever. And Chinaka's like, okay, sir, what do you want to wrap it in? He's like, okay, yeah, I don't know, something not like this, something not like that. And he's like, okay, well, this will be fine or whatever, right? And as the old guy is like walking away, and he's like, oh, forget, right? And then Jinhyuk looks over at him, and then someone walks up and he's like, oh yeah, I was just trying to scare you. Anyway, I hate this movie. I just, I sorry if you keep hearing me clicking. I'm fidgeting with my Apple Pencil right now, because this movie just makes me so mad. Anyway, first gripe, Jinhyuk is fucking insufferable. He's insufferable. I cannot stand him. And they tried to make him, like, they tried to make you like feel bad for him because of like, him being kidnapped, him having like trauma and all these nightmares and shit, right? But you can't, here's my thing. You can't have a character that's been traumatized, right? In my opinion, this is just my opinion. But then have them be so insufferable. I mean, this man was just the epitome of an asshole. Always bad-mouthing people, never has anything good to say about anybody or anything, is always negative, is always insulting people by like calling them slurs, just casually calling somebody a slur. Like I said, always talking down on people. But then it's like, oh, well, he was kidnapped, so boo-hoo, right? Like, what? And then the thing with Sunwoo, with him being, like, I love the fact that he's like so forthcoming with his sexuality and with his identity, and like, yes, period, right? But then he's like oblivious to the fact that Jinhyuk is a homophobe, and he keeps like throwing himself at Jinhyuk and like at other people, and it's like, oh well, he, his mom kind of like slept with the guy that he liked. To me, the guy that your mama was sleeping with seemed like she was closer to his age than closer to you. So anyway, so that's one thing I hate about Sunwoo. Another thing is like, stop making gay people in movies stupid. We're not stupid. We can be. But that's not, like, they made him so oblivious to like, he never like stood up for himself. And he just let people just like say whatever they want about him without him like I get it, like if it's like in real life, like if somebody's like talking shit about you, or like if somebody is like calling you a slur, you can choose on whether or not you want to react. But this is a movie. This is a film that somebody sat down and wrote the story of, and they didn't think, hey, maybe I should make my character like stick up for themselves, because you can't be like, oh, I'm scandalous, oh, I'm my mother's daughter, my mother's son, or whatever, right? But then you're just like, oh well, I'm just gonna let a man just call me an F slur just to be quirky. Like, anyway, Gi-bum and Soo-young were great additions to the cast, I will say. Gi-bum was always like feral for Sunwoo, and Soo-young was just like a cute like himbo, essentially, right? Just big, kind of stupid, and cute. I love Soo-young. So yeah, and the fact that they called this a BL pisses me the fuck off, because yes, there were BL plot devices, but this isn't the first movie that comes to my mind when I think of a BL. It's just not. On Viki, this has the rating of 8.8. Honestly, that's a little too high for my standards. It's a little too high for me. I'm not rating it this. Literally, I wrote in my own like personal like written review of the drama, I literally liked everything, mostly everything, besides Jinhyuk. Like I said, Jinhyuk is just insufferable in my opinion. Anyway, that was my rant slash not really review of Antique. Terrible. Terrible BL. Terrible. Hated it. The only, in my opinion, the only recovering aspects of this were the three other characters being Sunwoo, Gibam, and Sooyoung. That was it. Anyway, if you have your thoughts about this BL, about this movie, please let me know. I hated it. I never want to see this movie again. Ever. I only rewatched it again because I want to do a review on it, and I had forgotten some parts, and I also wanted to learn a little bit more because the first time that I watched it, I understood nothing, right, at all. But yeah, just let me know how you feel about it in the comments. I will be reading them. I always do. Yes, I know. Yes, this is my first video back. I didn't feel the need to do a little spiel about that. And yes, I am also doing a rebranding, but I'll also make a video about that sometime after I get these other reviews, recorded. So yeah, I will see you in my next video. I hope you have a lovely day. Bye.